Thanks very much indeed. Hello, my name is Michael Aldridge. I'm the CEO of Hexima Limited. Hexima is a biotech company, and we're developing a new treatment for a disease called Onychomycosis, or fungal nail infections. Thank you very much. Let's advance to the next slide. That's the disclaimer. If we could advance to this introductory slide, I'll just hit a couple of highlights in terms of Hexima and what we do. We're an ASX listed company. We trade under the ticker HXL. And as I said, we're developing a new topical product. So it's a liquid that's applied directly to the nail, and it addresses a very large market. Onychomycosis is a fungal infection. It affects something like 14% of the US population. And it's a really tough disease to treat. If you suffer from this disease, there are topical and oral therapies to treat it, but it is very difficult to get rid of. And we've got something quite different. It's a new molecule. It's a proprietary molecule. We own this peptide and its ability to treat this disease. And it's got quite a unique approach. It rapidly penetrates the nail and very effectively kills the fungus on the far side. And so we've got a goal for this treatment to represent a very safe and well-tolerated and, more importantly, effective therapy for this disease, all in a very convenient and short course package. And we're relatively advanced. We're in phase 2 right now, with the results of our phase 2 trial coming out this quarter. So it'll be an exciting time for us. And we anticipate moving into phase 3 later on this year. If you could advance to the next slide. We've got a very experienced team who all have done this before. I lead a group of folks who are based both in Australia and then some more recent hires in the US. Our head of development is based in the US. Our head of commercial recently hired is based in the US. And we've also added some manufacturing expertise recently. This team's come together very nicely as we advance our program through phase 2 and heading into phase 3. Thanks very much. And I'm going to play a short animation here, because I think this will give you a very good idea of not only our product, how it works, and the disease that it treats. So let's play that animation. Thank you.
Onychomycosis is a common infectious disease of nails caused by fungi. Some patient groups, such as the elderly and diabetics, are particularly vulnerable to the disease. The disease causes a large healthcare burden, and an estimated $3.7 billion is spent annually on treatments. The infection occurs when fungus enters under the nail plate. Once the fungus enters, it continues to grow and invade the nail bed, causing an infection. This infection causes discoloration and thickening of the nail plate. Left untreated, the nail becomes thick and brittle and easily separates from the nail bed, which can be painful. Peptides is a potential new topical treatment for onychomycosis, which is currently being evaluated in clinical trials. Early phase clinical data suggests that peptides may provide better efficacy than existing topical treatments, with a shorter treatment period. Once applied to the nails, peptide is able to quickly pass through the keratin in the nail plate and into the nail bed to reach the site of infection. Once in the nail bed, peptide quickly binds to the fungal cells and enters into the cell. Once inside, it rapidly attacks the cell's critical components and causes the cells to die. The appearance of the nail begins to improve in as little as 2 weeks. With the fungi in the nail bed now dead, the nail continues to grow clear over time. Peptide is being developed by Hexima and has the potential to be a safe and effective topical treatment for onychomycosis with a convenient shorter course of therapy and rapid resolution of disease.
Thanks very much. Well, I hope that gave you a good idea of we can advance to the next slide. that gave you a good idea of the disease that we're treating and the way that our molecule works. It's a very common condition. This will be very familiar to you, particularly if you're in an elderly patient group where it tends to be more common. As I said, there are two approaches to treating this disease. There's either the topical treatments that are available right now, and there are the oral medications, pills that you can take. The challenges associated with each are that the topical treatments take a very long time, daily therapy for a full year, and suffer from quite modest efficacy. They only work in about 10 to 15% of the patients they treat. The oral medications are more effective, but suffer from some quite significant and serious adverse events. And so patients tend to prefer treating this disease with topical therapies. That's the preferred mode, but they are frustrated by the fact that they've got to put these topical drugs on daily for a full year, and then it often doesn't work. And so there's a very clear unmet medical need. Patients are frustrated by the fact that they can't resolve this infection effectively. Thank you very much. And so this is our solution. The molecule we call pezidefdide. It's a naturally occurring peptide, which has actually evolved over millennia to serve an antifungal role in plants. We've co-opted this capability for its use in human pharmaceuticals, and it's got some particular properties that make it a potentially extremely powerful pharmaceutical agent. It's very hydrophilic, it dissolves very rapidly, and this encourages its penetration across the nail. It's very stable, and it's very powerfully antifungal. And fortunately, when it comes to a pharmaceutical agent, it's very specific for the fungal cells. It only kills the fungus. It has a very safe profile, and it's not absorbed through the human skin. It does all of its activity right there underneath the nail. Thanks very much. And we make these claims based on some really quite powerful early stage clinical data that we have. And so this is a phase 1 study that I'm going to take you through, where we treated an escalating doses of our drug through 3 different cohorts, up to 2%. We treated patients for just 6 weeks, daily therapy for 6 weeks, and then demonstrating that the drug was very safe, we expanded in cohort 4 to a much larger group of patients. Again, 6 weeks of daily therapy, and we followed all patients out to week 12. Thanks very much. And on this slide, just documenting the safety that we saw here, this drug has documented a very attractive safety profile. No drug-related adverse events, no itching, redness in the treatment area. And very nicely, as I said, it's not absorbed through the skin. We cannot detect pezidefdide in the bloodstream. It doesn't give rise to any systemic toxic events. Next slide, please. And from the efficacy perspective, while this was a very early and short study, we have some very powerful evidence of activity here. And so this first measure is what we call a mycological cure. It's an evaluation of the presence of fungus in the samples that we take from the end of nails at the end of the study. The purple bar is the vehicle. It's the formulation with no drug in it. The green bar is the formulation containing pezidefdide. And 2 important things, you can see, A, there's a dramatic difference between the 2. We're clearly getting very powerful activity in the drug formulation. And the drug formulation was able to drive a mycological cure of 69% of the nails that it treated in the larger expansion cohort. And just to give you some context there, that's more than 2-fold better than any other approved topical or oral agent has been able to deliver in its studies to date. Next slide. And this is the second component of efficacy. What we're looking for here is the clearance of the nail growing out clear, having killed the fungus. What proportion of nails are demonstrating the fact that they have gone below 10% of the nail area still infected and still discolored by the original infection? Again, 2 features. The vehicle did nothing. You can see that line right across the bottom, and you can see an immediate response in the treated nails that improves over time. It's a very nice picture to show of improving efficacy, improving as the nails grow out clear over time. Thanks very much. And in this study, in this slide, I just want to demonstrate visually what we're able to achieve here. And so here's a little time-lapse photo. If you could kick that off. That's before treatment. And then just 2 weeks later, so after 2 weeks of therapy, you're starting to see the nail grow out clear. At 6 weeks, that's the end of treatment. And then at 12 weeks, that's the end of study. You can see that the nail in this particular case has almost completely cleared. A very nice result for this disease. Next slide. And so what we think we have here is a drug which delivers on everything that this market opportunity is looking for. It appears to be a safe and well-tolerated medication with this very convenient, easy to apply and short course of therapy, delivering world-class clearance rates. And that I think is very powerful for this particular disease. Let's advance to the next slide. We're in the middle of a phase 2 clinical trial. We're looking at 3 different treatment arms, a short course, a long course, and then something that sits there in between with a short course followed up by weekly pulses of drug. And everyone is being treated in one of those 3 treatment arms, and we are following patients all the way out to week 40. 117 patients have been enrolled. It's a multi-center study being run across New Zealand and Australia. And this is a study which we expect to report the results of in the second quarter of this year. Advance to the next slide, please. And just to give you some context of what we're looking for here, as I said, we're looking to report the results. This is a blinded study, so we do not know any results at this point in time, but it's a very important step towards phase 3. And what we're looking to achieve out of this study, if you looked at what we did in our phase 1 study, we had a very short course of therapy, just 6 weeks of daily dosing. We only followed patients out to 12 weeks, and it was only a single dosing approach. And we delivered some pretty impressive results, as you saw. In the phase 2 study, it's a much longer courses of therapy, somewhere between 12 and 36 weeks. We're following patients for a much longer period of time, allowing their nails to grow out clear. And we have 3 dosing approaches to see which is best, a short therapy, a long therapy, or something in between. In terms of what we would like to see coming out of this study that will really represent a platform for us to go to FDA and secure approval to get into phase 3 and validate the potential of this drug in a very sort of real sense. We want to see just as impressive mycological cures as we've documented to date. We'd love to see the nails growing out more healthy over a longer period of time. And of course, we'd like this study to drive our understanding of which is the best way for our drug to treat this disease, some sort of differential activity as between the 3 different treatment approaches that we've taken. Next slide, please. And so finally, just as a quick summary, it's a very large and poorly served market. There's a clear opportunity for something new and unique here. We have got a new molecule. It works very differently with a very strong patent protection around it. We've documented the safety here. We've always got more work to do there, but it's very clear that at this point in time, we've got a very safe medication that appears to have these very powerful attributes that make it a perfect candidate as a therapy here, being very convenient, easy to apply, topical therapy, driving what we think is going to be world-class efficacy. And with that, thank you very much. I'll hand it back to the host.
Thank you, Michael. Quite a few questions here. Can you talk about the size of the market? Who's the kind of market leader now and kind of what's their market share?
It's a very large market in terms of its occurrence. I said it affects something like 10 to 14% of the world's population. It's an enormous number of people. The primary market for this disease is obviously the US, where a lot of money is spent on treating the condition. And also, interesting enough, Japanese population's got a real interest in a more cosmetically attractive appearance of their nails. They take their shoes off when they go into restaurants, etc. And so those are the 2 largest markets in this world. The leading therapy is it's a topical product called Jublia in the US or Clenophen in Japan. It had at a point in time a very successful run and drove revenue close to $350 million annually in the US. It's since been hampered by a lot of pricing and market access restrictions, which has restricted its success. But what is very clear, if you talk to anyone that's been active in the development of drugs in this space, everyone is looking for a better way to treat this disease. And if you can crack this nut, you've got something extraordinarily valuable.
And you own some patents around the product?
We own the molecule and its treatment of onychomycosis and some other diseases. And then we also have a sort of a ring fencing of patents that protect things, smart things that we've done to the formulation. And then also the fact that this product is a biologic gives us market exclusivity following approval in most markets. So it's a very strong multi-layered patent protection that we own globally.
And understandably, I'm just going through the last quarter, you've spent a lot of money on R&D. Does that R&D spend come back to the company in those kind of innovation grants through the government?
We do. The Australian government is extraordinarily supportive of research and development expenditure in the Australian market. And so we've benefited from that enormously. Something just north of 40% of what you spend on qualifying R&D comes back in the form of a cash rebate annually on our R&D filing.
Excellent. And just probably in summary, what's the path to market? You've got to go phase 3, you've got to get approval. What's a path to market look like in a rough time frame?
So the pathway to market is absolutely phase 3 is our final step. Our primary target market is the US. With respect to the Japanese market, we would look to bring on a Japanese corporate to license the Japanese market. It's a separate and quite an insular market. We definitely need a Japanese partner there. And the phase 3 program is a 12-month study that we'd anticipate kicking off towards the end of this year. Run that study, we'll then make application to FDA for approval of the drug and looking to launch it thereafter.
Great, Michael. Thanks for coming back on. That's all we have time for, and we'll follow with interest the story.
Thank you very much indeed.